This is an innocuous little Bud Light aluminum can, not glass. A lot thicker than the regular cans. I said aluminum can. I think they call them aluminum bottles. I have made lightweight, non-moving part camp stoves out of those. One of them I made today. This is the second one that I made. There it is right there. The rolled lip down inside. Okay, how I make this, and obviously it's been lit, so it works. And how you make it, I've got some directions here. Here's when you first start. You got two bottles, okay? Pardon my artistry, or in lack thereof. One of them, to make the die, you cut 1 inch from the bottom. Just cut it off. Use a hacksaw, cut it off about right there, and then use some tin snips or some really, really sharp scissors that you don't care about ruining, and cut down along your line. Basically what you can do when you want to draw your line, you can kind of make your mark, you know, take your pen, set it on there, and then just kind of turn the bottle so that you got a fairly straight line in all the measurements, because they're all circular anyway. You're just cutting metal off of there. So that's for the die. That's 1 inch. Okay. For the stove itself, you're going to cut 2.5 inches from the bottom, and where the taper starts going in at the top of the can, like right here, you're going to make a mark there, make a circle around it, or around the bottle, so you know where to cut. And then from that line 2 inches up, you're going to have another line right about there. So you cut this thing in half. Okay, this is for the stove itself. You cut that in half. You use your tin snips down to this 2.5 inch point, and you have a nice little the bottom piece right there. That's what this is right here. Then you take your hacksaw and you cut this off. Okay, just butt it right up against the bottom of that lip and cut through there, because your tin snips won't cut through that. So you're going to have to use a hacksaw to get that off there. And then cut the piece where you've got it measured around here, 2 inches up from this spot. Cut that. And then you cut this and you smooth it all out. And basically what you wind up with are these two pieces. This is the bottom of the stove. Okay. And this is that neck where it was cut off. And this fits right down in there. But when you make the die, you got to drill a vent hole in the middle, because if you try to put it on there, like I'm going to show you, the air in there, air pressure will try to force it off. But to make this die, what you're trying to do is you're trying to widen this bottom of this can out so that you can use it to go over the top of this. And what that does, when you put it in your press or in your vise, it rolls this edge down around this. And it seals it up. It doesn't have to be airtight. Just what it does is holds it in place. And if you see down in there, you can see 4 little vents that I cut in the bottom of the funnel, like right here. There and there. See, there's the end of the funnel. So we're going to cut some grooves in here by using a file. Kind of put it at an angle. You just use the edge of the file, kind of tilt it at about a 45. And you can put it on this side and that side and just saw together. Okay, see? And then you can turn it the other way at 45. Yeah. So you got your 4 little vents. What that does is when you put your fuel in here, and what those little vents do, it allows the fuel to run from inside this reservoir to between the reservoir and this outer wall. And I'll show you why here in a little bit. One thing I would recommend is making sure that you kind of sand the edges of these, because it's pretty sharp and it'll have little snags on there if you don't. I mean, it's kind of dangerous enough. I haven't cut myself yet. I clip myself with the file, and that's about it. But you know, you don't need to take chances. So kind of just file all that down a little bit. Not file it, but use a little sandpaper. I think I've got some, this is 180 grit. It seems to work fine. But you do that on here, you do it on the die, of course. You do it on both ends of the funnel. Okay. Makes things fit a little better too. Just make sure that you make nice straight lines around here, which is hard to do even with that little system I told you about. If you have to keep trimming it, pretty soon you got a thimble rather than a funnel. So that seats down inside there, just like that. And that's about how much lip you want up above the funnel. What, maybe about 1/4 of an inch or so? Because as you can see here, it doesn't roll down very far, but it holds it real good. And you can use a press in a shop if you wanted to, but first time I did it, I used a floor jack and got underneath the motorhome and pressed these pieces together. But I didn't like the way that it turned out. It was kind of mangled, and I started thinking this morning, I wonder if the vise would work. Well, the vise opens up far enough, and I've got these 2 pieces of old ply. You can see the circles on them where I made that one earlier today, and just stack it up like this. Put one there, one there, put the cans in the middle, crank it, and you might have to loosen it up and turn the can a little bit to get it nice and even, but it worked, and it worked better than sticking it in the motorhome, that's for darn sure. Now that we've got this ready and kind of seated down in there, and it's not glued in there or anything, okay, it's just in there. Now we're going to take the die. In order to get this to fit over the can a little better, I took the edge of my pen and stuck the edge of the die over the table like this, and then I took my pen and pushed around where it hangs over the table, and it kind of spreads it out a little more, and it makes it fit over the can a little better. Let's see if this kind of goes down there pretty easy. Yeah, see? So we got that on there, and it's ready to press, and we're going to go over to the vise, get it set up, and we're going to do that right now. Just hang around. Loosen it up, take a look. Looks fairly even. See if we can get this die off of here. So that unscrewed pretty easily. You're just basically sliding it off. There you go. It's not perfect by any means, but I guarantee you it'll work. You take some pliers, and in places like this, for instance, where it's kind of sticking up a little bit right there, I just basically kind of crimp it down just a touch. Remember, it's just aluminum, so you don't have to really push down real hard. See how it's kind of rolled there now a little more? And you can use it to flatten stuff out if you want. If it just doesn't look exactly how you like it. It's not pretty enough. Okay, no sharp edges around there now. Okay. How about that, huh? Alright, remember when I said that down in those little vents inside, the fuel will seep from this reservoir to in between that funnel reservoir and this outside wall? And I said that I'll tell you why it needs to do that in a minute. Well, what we're going to do, let's switch sides here. If you look real close, you see vent holes right here called jets. My prototype and this one had a lot of holes like that, like this one does. My prototype did maybe 18. This probably has like 20. You do the math, I don't want to. I'm going to cut that down on this new one, because the gas burns pretty quick. We're not using very much, 3/4 of an ounce or so, and it'll burn for like 5 minutes. Good enough to get your water hot enough for making coffee or making tea. It's enough to get the water nice and hot, maybe not all the way to boiling, but to the point where you can see the bubbles on the side of the cook pot. So what we're going to do on this one, I'm going to make an adjustment on this, and I'm going to make a few less holes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill 8 5/64" holes, but instead of putting 2 1/16" holes between, I'm only going to put 1. So we're going to cut those smaller holes in half, and we're going to see how it lights. And basically this is experimentation. I'm quick enough making these things now that it's not a pain in the butt anymore. The first prototype was a real pain. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to take some painter's tape, and you're going to kind of put this around just below the lip of the stove, kind of like that. This is a way to mark your holes and the distance. And what you're going to do is you're going to measure down from the top 5/8 of an inch. So right about there. And so I'm going to draw a circle around this and mark where we want the holes, and then we're going to start drilling. So I'll be back in just a sec. Alright, so I got my lines marked. Don't try to make these perfect, okay, for the jets. They don't have to be perfect to burn, trust me. But these are the 8 bigger jets. I've eyeballed it in between. And so the smaller jet, I'm not even going to measure. I'm just going to drill right in between. There's one very, very important thing you need to remember when you're drilling your jets. Be careful and go slow, because you only want to drill holes through the outer wall. You don't want to let those jets run through to the inner funnel, because it'll ruin the stove. It won't work. Remember, we want the fuel to run through these vents inside between the funnel and the outer wall. And so what happens is that when you put fuel in here, you take your lighter and light it, it just, kind of sits there and bubbles for a little while. It heats up the gas that you put in there, which I'm using heat, okay, in the yellow bottle. And once it starts to boil, the heat, it turns to gas, and the gas gets caught right inside this outer wall, and it forces the flame and through the gas out your jets. So just make sure that you don't go all the way through. Just go through that first wall, just like this. Just like that. All right. So all the holes are drilled in here. The smaller ones, the 1/16", there's only half in here. It's in this stove that this is sitting on. We'll see if maybe it burns a little longer, but still nice and hot. So we'll take the tape off, and there you go. Okay, you can see how many's in there compared to how many's in here. Okay. It'll definitely burn differently. I mean, that is... I'm almost positive that it'll burn differently. But what we're going to do is we're going to put both of them right over there where those wood blocks are, fill them with the exact same amount of fuel, and we're going to light them both at the same time. And we're going to check to see how quickly they ignite and how long they burn. It'll be a good experiment to figure out which stove is more efficient.